Uh, Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of ADPC, I warmly welcome you today to today's webinar, which is our Interns talk. And my name is 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐦𝐚. I am very delighted to be the moderator of today's session. Just before we start, I would like to let you know that this session is being recorded. But anyway, welcome to everybody. Before any delay, I'm going to invite Mr. Tariq Sohail, our Program Officer of Capacity Development at ADPC, to deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Tariq, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tasneem. And good afternoon, everyone. It's really nice to come into our Interns Talk, the fourth series. Today, we would like to hear from our young professionals what they have to say on the topic. And equally, we are delighted to inform that this will continue every month. Our aim is not only with ADPC's intern, but we will also be reaching out to other universities and institutions where interns or young professionals will be able to deliver some of the cross-cutting issues or themes. Those are prevailing over here. I wish both our speaker and our moderator best of luck. Over to you, Tasneem. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tariq, for your opening remarks. Just to give a bit of a background and a bit of context to today's topic, we know that climate change is affecting the frequency and intensity of hydrometeorological hazards across Asia and the Pacific. Climate projection and climate risk assessments are essential tools for planning adaptation. However, it is still challenging to translate complex climate science into practical actions and policies. So the aim of today's session is to share practical experiences in using climate projection and climate risk assessment, improve understanding of how climate risk information supports adaptation planning across different sectors and levels. The aim is also to highlight challenges related to uncertainty, data interpretation, and communication. And in the session, we would like to reflect on the role of young professionals in connecting technical knowledge with real-world practice. So I would like to introduce our speaker today. We have Ms. Joy, our Climate and Disaster Resilience Analyst at ADPC. In her role, Ms. Joy has been actively engaged in supporting climate risk assessment, adaptation-focused training initiatives, and research activities that strengthen the interface between climate science and disaster risk reduction practice. Through her work, she has gained valuable insights into how climate projections are interpreted, communicated, and applied in the real-world planning processes. So we'll move on to our discussion session now, and I'll ask a few questions, and we'll further on develop on the elements that I've highlighted in the aims of today's session. So our first question to Ms. Joy is, how are climate projections and climate risk assessments currently used in adaptation planning, and where do gaps persist?
Okay, thank you, Zareen, and good afternoon to everyone. So, like in saying of the climate projection, climate projection is that one provides the future simulation of the interaction in the Earth system, like interaction in the atmosphere, seas, and land to project the future climate system, like how rainfall is changing, how temperature is rising, and how sea level is rising in the future periods, and like near future, mid future, and the far future periods. So in the climate projection, we use the emission scenario, global emission scenarios, a pathway. And under these scenarios, like we can project the future climate conditions. So the latest climate model is CMIP6 model, which is the foundation of the national adaptation plans, and which allow government to identify which sectors have to be kept as priority areas, and which sectors are mostly affected by the climate changes in the futures and the language needed adaptation strategies. So the climate resilience are now mainstreaming into the climate risk assessment, specifically into the sector-based or the localized assessment to know the which sectors are affected under each climate scenarios and the the assessment under these sectors like infrastructure, agriculture, and the socio-economic conditions. For example, like we are assessing how the agricultural use can be changed if the climate is changing in this pathway, and then like we can know that how which sensitivity indicators are affected by the climate change, and like develop the adaptation strategy based on that. So like seeing that the ability to the project for the climate future climates, and then like ability to adopt for the adaptation strategies, the gaps are existing. So the current gaps are the mostly gaps in like temporary and spatial resolution of the models, because like the models are developed based on the global climate structures. Like if we would like to do for the specific areas or the localized area, so it has to be downscale. So there are several methods for the downscaling from the global climate model to the regional models. But the thing is like the hand practice and the familiar with the downscaling methods stay lacking, and the like is weakening, and then the next thing is like availability of the local data, the measured data in the real ground. Let's say like if we would like to make assessment in the specific region, and like we have to get the climate data from the multiple meteorological station in this area. But since climate modeling needs historical data at least for 30 years, so some meteorological station might have missed data for some years, and then for this kind of thing, we have to match with the global data again, and the uncertainties arise from this. And then the next thing is that climate risk assessments are like mostly focusing on the single hazard and the single sectors. For example, like that drought or happening in the area can cause a crop failures. So we make assessment like how the crop failure will be in the next future if the drought condition is happening like this. But the second thing is that we need to integrate with the several consequences because of the crop failure, because if the crop failure is happening in the region, so the economic condition will also be declined. And then like it may be also result to the migration from the region to the another. So for this kind of consequence, we stay looking to integrate into the climate risk assessment. So like I think these are the current conditions or integrations of the climate risk climate protection into the risk assessment as some gaps, current gaps existing.
Right. Thank you so much. I will move on to the next question. What challenges arise when translating climate model output into actionable plans and policy decisions, and how can these be effectively addressed for national planning?
Yes, seeing this, like climate models produce a probabilistic outputs that with the probability condition, they produce the outputs. But like the thing is like for the policymakers, like it is difficult to translate the models produce output data set into the policy directive. Because like when the climate models produce an output with the probability conditions, so the policymaker may have like in the ability to make low risk, low regret decision in the policy making, and the more comprehension of the uncertainties from the climate model has to be understood by the policymaker, and this uncertainty also needed to be integrated into the policy in the region. And the next thing is like I said before, the sovereign methods to the downscale from the global climate models into the regional level. But the thing is like that technical expertise is we can to extract the data set from the climate models and the downscale into the regional level. So like this kind of technical capacity development is also required. And the thing is like the data set from the climate models are highly technical data. So that translating into the highly technical data into the user friendly form is we can if we are translating the models into the policy, that it has to be in the form more like understandable by policymaker, business enterprises, enterprises, and also the stakeholders involving into the national adaptation. So these kind of things are the major challenges they are currently facing.
Right, thank you. The next question is, what role do sector-specific and localized climate risk assessments play in strengthening adaptation outcomes?
Yeah, this is the most critical thing in the national adaptation, because localized assessment and sector-based assessment are really important. That if we are making localized assessment, we can know that which kind of sector is vulnerable, or which kind of community is mostly vulnerable into the to the climate exposure to the climate hazard. And then which kind of sensitivity indicator will be there, which kind of indicators are mostly affected by the climate condition. So based on that, we can develop the the priority sectors for the adaptation plannings, and then saying that we need to consider for the vulnerabilities of the localized and the sector specific needs. We need to consider existing adaptation capacity of the local communities, and then based on that, we can make that vulnerability assessment and then integrate it into the national adaptation. So the localized or climate risk assessments are really critical for the national adaptation plan. So because they are able to identify which priority sectors are mostly needed for the adaptation strategies, and look at the climate risk assessment are ensuring the national adaptation plans they ensure the bottom-up involvement in the national adaptation plans, and that the bridge the gap between the global climate models into the actionable plans in the national planning.
Great, thank you. So now we're coming at it from a bit of a different angle. So from an emerging professionals perspective, what innovations or approaches could improve the uptake of climate risk information and adaptation planning?
Yeah, the most possible integration of the innovation is in the integrations of the digital and the innovation technologies into the data set system, we have separate tools and dashboard developed to extract the climate data and the downscale, even the downscale data. So the thing is the interpretation part is difficult for the user. So the integrations of the digital and innovation technologies to interpret the complex climate data set to be applicable forms will be useful. And then also we can integrate the digital system to develop the MRV system to monitor the real-time climate to monitor the real-time climate parameters and available to the local levels, and also the most granular and spatial resolution to monitor the vulnerable population and vulnerable areas of the climate affected areas. It's also useful for the decision makers, and also that like I said, there are several toolkits and dashboard developed to monitor for the climate data set. But the thing is, the data ownership has not been reached to local level, and it needs to be reached to local level and in a form that understandable by the local level. So in this kind of cases, we can integrate the innovation technologies to assess these goals, and then the next thing is like we can linkage the climate vulnerability assessment into the financing mechanism to know that to smoothen or to prioritize the funding mechanism to the vulnerable population or the mostly affected areas.
So related to that, I think the next question is, how can institutions like AGPC support stronger linkages between climate science, DRR, and adaptation policy?
Yes, AGPC has a historical experience and many historical experience in integrating DRR, the disaster risk frameworks to the country policy and policy. So like the integrations of the climate science and DRR framework is the most critical things. And then like we also can have the next thing is for the training and capacity development to the practitioner for the climate data set, enabling them to interpret the climate data to be able to implement in their on real ground. And the next thing is like promoting the early warning system, the geospatial tools, and the analytical system for the climate data, so the bridge gap between scientific output into the actionable policy.
Amazing. Well, thank you for the remarks. We have a couple of additional questions. The first question is, how can social protection mechanisms contribute to better climate change adaptation?
So in fact, this is a really good question. Like social protection mechanism, like as humanitarian aid, also vital to the to enhance the resilience of the community and also reduce the vulnerabilities. Like I have a good example from my country, Myanmar, that we have a coastal region that have been affected by the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 cyclone in 2008, but the community was like seriously affected for this storm, and like we has several organizations giving their supports and aids and like technical assistance to build the our shelters and like climate hazard resilient housing system. So for this kind of humanitarian aid is like in a way that we are enhancing resilience to the community and the reduce vulnerability. So there's the social protection system is also critical in the enhancing the resilience and reducing the vulnerabilities of the community. And then the next thing is that we can strengthen the equity and inclusion in the climate actions. The area affected by the climate hazards are mostly like they have been destroying the agricultural lands across there, mostly relying natural resources, like mostly relying for their livelihood. And then when the climate hazard comes, it has been destroyed. And like in these kind of areas, like the economic condition is decline, and like the household has mostly the men, men, and if the job opportunity is like becoming rare in their region, and like the man has to walk in another place and migrate to the another place, and the women are left in the area where prone to the climate hazard area. So that enhancing resilience in these areas are like enhancing resilience for women also, and like women, and also we can ensure the strengthening the equity and inclusion in the climate system. The next thing is like like I said before, the humanitarian aid is like the way bridging the gap between the vulnerable population and the funding mechanism. Like we can identify the most vulnerable population in the areas, and like have to assess the funding mechanism to these areas.
Okay, thank you. The last question is, how can climate and disaster risk assessment help improve local disaster plans?
Like this question is a little bit similar to the things I have addressed in the previous questions. Like by integrating the climate risk into the local disaster plans, we can identify the priorities, the vulnerabilities in the region, and the needs for the adaptations and mitigation strategies and integrated into the long-term planning in the region. And then another thing is, like I said before, that we can do the sectoral analysis, a community-based analysis, and identify the needs of the communities that the climate action needs in these specific sectors. And the last thing is like integrations of the risk informed data into the early warning system, and can help to assist preparedness plan in the region. So these are the integration. These are the things that we can do for integrate the climate disaster risk assessment into the national planning.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for these very insightful answers that highlighted not only the technical dimensions of climate projections and risk assessment, but also the institutional, communicative, and financial mechanisms required to make them truly actionable. I will now give back the floor to Mr. Tariq for any closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joy. And it is always enriching to hear what exactly is on the ground and how, as a young professional, we are able to hear from them. All these things really relate to your own, all these things relate to your own thought process that is happening from the one that you must have studied at any stage. Not in terms of what you have achieved over there, but what exactly you have seen on the ground and how you want to apply over it. So this adaptation planning that you already explained, it has been captured very well. So my observation on to all this is that we will be able to take out some of those good and some of those important points from this webinar series, and we will also help to see our next speakers in the next month to see more of those accents, more of those words where they will be able to explain in detail. So I would like to thank you both, Joy as a speaker and Tasneem as the moderator of the session. So if we can take some questions from the floor, it is fine. Otherwise, we will come to the concluding part as well.
Sure. I'll wait for anybody if they have any questions. Please feel free to write it in the Q&A segment.
Seems we are short of, right, we are short of questions from our viewers or participants.
Well, I would absolutely invite everybody that has attended or everybody who will be watching this online to send us any more question if you come across this and the topic and want to know more. We're very happy to answer going forward. But for the moment, again, thank you, Mr. Tariq and Joy. This has been very insightful and I've learned a lot today. And I hope everybody else enjoyed the session. Thank you very much. I'll bring this to an end now.
Thank you, Zerreen, and also Tariq, and also everybody attending to this session.
Thank you.